A lot of cops hung out at this place, and they did coke right on the bar. And my dad was an officer in that district. The owner, this guy Rick Hewitt, he goes, "Hey, Jeff, how come you always leave when the cops are here?" Well, my dad's a cop. And he says, "Oh, yeah, what district?" And I go, "This district." And he says, "Yeah, what's his name?" I said, "John Michalski." And he goes, "Hey, I know your dad." He says, "Hey, tell your dad you know Rick the Pimp." And I go, "Rick, I'm not going to tell my dad I work for Rick the Pimp." I didn't do any of the hard stuff, but I did acid. Mm-hmm. And acid was something that woke me up.
Yeah.
It just woke me up.
Yeah.
And busted me out of that prison culture. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah.
It was bizarre for your childhood friends to see them. That happened to them. They'd go upstairs and it'd be like, 10 people in the living room, all nodded out.
Yeah.
And they have a needle and hanging out of their arm or this or that. You lost your friends. Just 4 weeks after starting to improvise in class, somebody invited me out to a coffee shop at a college to perform. And we did, and we were terrible. But people were laughing at my dysfunctional stuff. The audience was laughing. And I felt connected, and I felt accepted. And I think I just went, "Oh, this is my tribe."
When you was born, Jeff?
1952.
1952.
Yes.
And where did you grow up?
In Chicago, on the north side of Chicago. It was an integrated neighborhood, which is unusual, or it was unusual at that time. So the father was a second generation Pole, became a police officer. I think he was some sort of street thug before, which is, if you watch, what was that, Clockwork Orange, that's the perfect training, is be a street thug and then grow up and be a cop.
Yeah.
So most of the people I know that were thugs in my neighborhood grew up to be cops.
Yeah.
So I went to school it was a neighborhood. We were separated from the rest of the neighborhood because they built expressways in Chicago, so we had to kind of walk around the expressway to get to school. So the people I went to school with were basically just Polish immigrant kids. And everybody spoke Polish in the neighborhood pretty much, except my family. Mm-hmm. So I was always kind of an outsider that way. And like the nuns would speak Polish to me almost exclusively. And a couple times I managed to say, "No rozumieć po polsku," right? But I just got tired of it. So I would just act like I understood everything. So if they said something to me, I'd go grab a bottle or something and run back to them, and they go, "No!" And I'd grab something else and give it to them, "No!" And then they thought I was messing with them, so they called me a gapa. So I already was a fool already then. So, so I think being in a culture where you're outside the culture gives you you have to make sense out of things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So you look for patterns even more so than other human beings do. People, when I think about the mind, mm-hmm. when I talk about this to creative people, I talk about the part that talks to you being a pattern recognition machine, mm-hmm. from the William Gibson science fiction stuff, that it's something that kept you alive. You'd recognize pattern. A bunch of cavemen would go to the cave, and Ugg would go in, and the bear would eat them, and everybody horrified, but the next day they come back and send the other Uglu in there, and he got boom. And then you start recognizing a pattern. If we go in the cave, bear's going to eat us, right?
Yeah.
And I think even nowadays, a lot of our stress is that we don't connect to the talking part of our brain being a pattern recognition machine.
Yeah.
So it'll tell you how to behave based on some inconvenience you had. So if there's a traffic jam, your brain will tell you why that person that cut you off is messed up, and why the person that gave you an appointment at that hour is messed up, and why everything is messed up. And it'll just give you that.
Yeah.
So we call that intelligence, but that's not the intelligent part of us.
So, growing up in what you'd say was a multicultural city.
Yeah, my direct neighborhood was multicultural, and then just next to us was another ethnic group who the Polish kids in my neighborhood thought they were protecting the village from.
Okay.
But it was just, it's just like it is wherever in the world, one village to another, that if they look a little bit different, then they're a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what was your, would say, fondest memories of growing up in that sort of different cultures? Was you exposed to different types of music?
yes, absolutely. It wasn't just the music, it was just going into people's houses.
Yeah.
And which I wasn't supposed to do, but as the middle kid, so I had the most freedom in the sense that nobody was paying attention to me. So you get a combination of neglect and also freedom. So, and my dad was a particularly violent human being, where a lot of times you don't want to be home when he came home. So I was very adept at climbing out of second-story windows and making my way out into the neighborhood at night. And who's out at night, right?
Yeah.
It's people drinking on the street. It's thieves. It's paper men. People that sold newspapers out of kiosks.
Yeah.
And that's and you couldn't go home and said, "This is who I was hanging out with."
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
So I got exposure to something that made me feel less danger than the rest of my family or other people, because to them, all this stuff out in the street or in the neighborhood or the black people that lived around the corner were somehow threats. And that so and then when it was a very authoritarian time in the States, this is in the 50s and 60s. So everybody of a certain age really, they had that saying, oh, don't trust anyone over 30. Well, it was literally true, and particularly men who were the dominant culture. So when you were threatened in any real way, it was by a father figure, an authority figure, or a police officer, or somebody that's there to guide you or protect you. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but it made me, gave me a healthy disrespect of authority, because I could see the truth when I was outside. Right? So whatever narrative my dad came in about this ethnic group or that ethnic group, or whatever violence he did to them that day, and proud of it, would just, it was easy for me to not show fear.
Yeah.
So I always had this thing with authority figures where they would punish me for something, right? And I wouldn't show any distress. And they'd up the punishment immediately. And I still don't show any distress. Well, if that's not boom, boom, and then just bam, bam, bam. So it was a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because later on, you're not, you're just doing stuff on your own.
Yeah.
Right? you're pressing on with other outsiders.
Yeah.
And whatever.
And they're
it is.
probably going through the same thing as well, because I think kids back then beating your kid or a cop beating you was a normal thing, right?
Yeah,
If
and you couldn't,
if
but
your
you couldn't
parents
even speak about it.
if your parents found out that cop give you a hiding, you probably deserved it.
That's right, absolutely.
And then you'd get another hiding.
If a priest hit you or a nun hit you, it didn't matter. You probably deserved it.
Yeah, you had it coming.
Yeah. So it was. It became easy for me to dismiss that, and then also culturally, what was happening? You had the Vietnam War, you had riots race riots, and that were generally started by police, and you. It was. There's something about that time that. People of the same age were having similar experiences.
Yeah.
And particularly people that were, and this wasn't my story, I didn't go to college until after I got out of the military, but other people at the time, like Black Panthers and groups like that, there was a group called the Young Lords that was a political street gang kind of thing. Basically, they fed homeless people and they stood up to authority, but wore military gear and stuff like that. But it was because they, in college at that time, they were given educations, broad educations in liberal arts and not specialties. And I think that scared the authoritarian culture. So I have conspiracy theories about that, where I feel like education dropped off the map in the 70s, in the mid-70s, because they just didn't want to raise another group of people that they educated that were just going to rebel.
Too aware,
against
right? Too aware.
That's right, yeah.
And so, passing the younger years into the teenage years, what were your first recollections of Chicago and music scene? And
well, I went to see like Muddy Waters for $2 at a small place called Alice's Revisited, which was, I guess you would say, a hippie enclave, right? So you pay $2 and you saw Muddy Waters. You'd see John Kay from Steppenwolf on the same bill, and you'd see whatever local bands were there. And there was no place that your parent would have ever taken you or suggested to or all that. And so that was a really important time to me creatively, because I could walking off the street. Folk clubs were prevalent a lot in Chicago too, but they started dwindling like jazz did. It wasn't dwindling; they were basically driven out, the jazz people. But the folk clubs, suddenly people weren't going to them anymore, and those became places where you could start doing comedy, not because anybody else started it, but whoever these outsiders were that would just go in and go, hey, can we, we'll build a stage there, can we play here? And, nobody was cultivating it. For the bar at that time would be, there's extra people in here drinking. And then you'd figure out, well, do we do better getting some ticket at the door, or should we share in the drink revenue? And because it was all new, and that's how they paid the folk singers too, you really had the opportunity to come from nothing and nowhere and practice what you do, become who you wanted to be.
Would you say comedy then compared to the comedy now, the stand-up, the amateur
Stand-up
level?
was at big clubs like Mr. Kelly's and what's the Copacabana, things like that. There weren't, all those things came out in my generation. the small comedy clubs and people funneling into that thing. Every comedy club that opened in Chicago, I was there at the beginning of it. And then smart people figured out that mostly mafia people, figured out that they could make money. Like on Wall Street, the one comedy club I started, I wasn't the owner, but it was one of the first performers there, or group of performers, had been a strip joint. In fact, everything on Wall Street in Chicago, on that side of the street was mafia. And the other side of the street was just regular business. So when I was in high school, we'd drive down Wall Street real slowly through all the traffic because you'd see the silhouette of the stripper in the window. And that became a comedy club later on. And this is so weird, the guys that started the comedy club were tech guys. They had some extra money, just the beginning of tech stuff, but computer guys, and they opened up this club. Well, one of the guys, they were doing poorly, very poorly. And one of the guy's cousins was the parking lot attendant. And we came in one day, it's rat infested, mouse infested, everything. But we were still playing. There's nobody supervising us. We're just running the club. You want. Yeah, do what we want. And suddenly the guy at the parking lot is the new owner. He's telling us he's the new owner. And then you start having things where someone knocks on the door and someone will deliver a side of beef, frozen beef, hang it up on the thing. And then 2 hours later, you're in the back, waiting to go on or, whatever. And then someone else would knock maybe an hour later and come and get the side of beef and take it out. And so at one point, I'm there, I'm talking to the owner, and he says to me, a lot of cops hung out at this place, and they did coke right on the bar. And my dad was an officer in that district. It's the 18th district. And so this guy, Rick Hewitt, he goes, "Hey, Jeff, how come you always leave when the cops are here?" And I said, well, my dad's a cop. And he says, "Oh, yeah, what district?" And I go, "This district." And he says, "Yeah, what's his name?" I said, "John Michalski." And he goes, "Hey, I know your dad." He says, "Hey, tell your dad you know Rick the Pimp." And I go, "Rick, I'm not going to tell my dad I work for Rick the Pimp." So that's the kind of the atmosphere it was. And that whole thing, we were talking earlier about snitching, right? The groupings I was in, like everyone that came back from Vietnam was a heroin addict. All my friends, just the kids you grew up with, right? They were heroin addicts, and we rented. One of the guys had a coach house behind his main house, and he just opened that up for us to live at. And I lived downstairs, and I was going to school for writing and theater, and I was doing comedy too, and everybody else was doing what they did, but they were junkies, basically. So that's another, you can't go home and tell your parents, "Oh yeah, I'm just renting an apartment with a building with a bunch of junkies." We can't do that. So I just, for me, there was something undoable about being helpless, right? So I couldn't be drunk and I couldn't be high of anything, because that not being able to move was the most terrifying thing to me. Right? So, and my dad was a cop on top of it. So I would go to school in the morning and I'd walk out the door and there'd be a plainclothes car on the corner. And when I get there, one of my roommates would be in the car. Right? And obviously he was ratting out his buddies, but it was always a different roommate in the car, right?
Yeah.
Or, it was bizarre for your childhood friends to see them. That happened to them.
Yeah. And
they'd go upstairs and it'd be like, 10 people in the living room, all nodded out.
Yeah.
And they have a needle and hanging out of their arm or this or that.
And what age were they at the time?
Hmm?
What age would have they have been? What age group?
They're by that time they're younger than me. So I was 21 when I got out of the military. They're like in their 20s. So some of them had regular jobs. One guy was a gym coach all day. So his usage was to be normal, you know. So he wasn't. But it was just bizarre to see people become not just petty criminals, but just really, you lost your friends.
No values left, right? Every
Yeah.
value is gone. But again, that's what we was talking about the system. You know, you're put into a war that you don't want to go to, then you come back an addict, and then the system is punishing you because now you're an addict because of what they've caused, and now you've got to snitch on your friends because there's no other way to get your drugs.
Or you're going to go to jail.
Yeah,
That
and then you're in another
was-
system.
So that was generally the case. In fact, some of them went into the military because they went to jail.
Yeah.
So they went to court, and the judge would say, "Well, I'll drop this if you join the Marines."
Yeah.
And so they would. That's
So
what they would do.
if we take it back from growing up in a neighborhood like that, you're exposed to an alcoholic father,
Yeah,
and you go to school, you've got punishment from teachers.
yeah,
If you go home, you get more punishment, and then you're then shipped out to a war for more punishment.
yeah,
And you come back and you end up in prison and more punishment.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can see why kids at the time were rebelling. The
Yeah.
ones that could see the system and how it was failing big time.
sure. And my brother, when I got out of the military, he didn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
I got in his Volkswagen Bug, and he's driving me somewhere, and he was telling me, he wasn't the guy that talked to me, he was the guy that escaped the family all the time, right? And he's driving me to this place, and he goes, "Oh, you're really the funniest guy I know." He's telling me, and I go, "Oh, okay." And we pull up to this Unitarian church where they have a comedy class in there or something, you know, improv class. And then he doesn't even say anything to me. He just opens the door and says, "You belong here." And he points to the door, and I go in the door, and there's people performing on stage. One of the guys was George Wendt, the guy that became Norm on Cheers. And but he was just some kid from the South Side, right? And I went on stage, and people immediately were laughing at me. And all I was doing was telling the truth. I was just telling painful stuff, or talking about my dad, or acting like him, or and people were laughing, and it was incredibly cathartic for me. And I went, "Wow, this is great." And so I became addicted to that type of connection and acceptance.
Yeah.
And out of a world in all the phases where I was called crazy every step of the way. So if you tell your dad what he did last night, you're crazy. If you tell the priest what you think, you're crazy. If you're in the military and you have wire rim glasses and you tell the truth, you're a threat and you're crazy. So, or you become crazy because you are in that situation.
Yeah, even if you think outside the box,
Yeah.
then you're looked at as crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's hard to tell if people then were more programmed than now. It's
Well, in a different way, right? So they were more hardwired in a, I would say, I don't even know whether to call it fascist or not, but you had that thing where people were being pursued by Congress as communists, people in showbiz and things like that. It was really a closed society. And for me, like, drug use was not an escape, but a revelation to me.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of the hard stuff, but I did acid. And acid was something that woke me up.
Yeah.
It just woke me up
Yeah.
and busted me out of that prison culture. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's different now. I think that commercialism, corporatism, and technology have trapped kids now,
Yeah.
and comfort for the older people.
Yeah.
I don't think people in my generation were very good. We weren't abusive parents, but we were neglectful parents
Yeah.
because we were still kids. When you're wherever they talk about this, wherever your abuse starts, you're kind of stuck in that
Yeah.
maturity level,
Yeah.
right? And I think then, people got married, they couldn't be their parents. And they really didn't know, well, your parents didn't know what to do either. They just were just more straightforward about how you were failing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think neglect became that millennial experience.
Yeah.
Right? They had to basically raise themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because the generation before that, the Second World War generation, was all about survival, wasn't it? It was about working hard,
yes,
saving money,
being quiet, not raising
keep your
a
head
fuss.
down, fit in.
That's right. And yes, very much so. Although there were, of course, there's the Beat generation, which was another group of rebellious, intelligent people, right? So generally middle class, but or the jazz culture was just that was like a powerful jolt to the psyche. Not that it was popular throughout the States, but if you were exposed to that, and then popular live music as a result, because they're Muddy Waters and somebody playing jazz were not strangers. They were at the same recording companies. They were playing in a jazz band, and then the jazz guys playing in the blues band. And I think that was a gigantic revelation for the generation just before me, the Beat generation. And then the extension of that was what they called the hippies and stuff, who were basically kind of childishly, in a way, rejecting all things. And then they grew up to be the greed is good people.
Yeah. So for people listening to this and people that don't know sort of the roots of jazz, would you say that the jazz and the clubs at the time, we're going back a little bit further here, in America, was kind of underground?
Well, not in New York, and not in some of the big. It was underground, but it was present.
Yeah.
Right. You had people that were not black people because they weren't allowed in some of the clubs that the people they wanted to see were playing. Right. But there's so much about that culture that is such a. If you're talking about American inventions, that's it. I mean, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the consciousness raising one.
I think this is what went hand in hand was the amount of pot smoking with jazz, and the word jiving. I only found out a couple of years ago what to jive meant was to just smoke pot and then listen to good jazz and dance.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the American government saw. They saw it as a threat because once you got to them clubs, black and white people were communicating, they were mixing, and it was a huge threat for America at the time.
The musical director at Second City was a jazz artist, right? He had worked with some of the great jazz bands, and he was Downbeat Magazine's Musician of the Year, like in '66 or something.
Yeah.
But jazz people, like in New York, for instance, to shut them down, they had to buy a license to perform. And if let's say you got busted for pot or suspected of it, you couldn't play.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
You were barred from playing.
Yeah.
And so all these guys started going to Europe. right? That's what to Denmark and France and Germany, not Germany, Germany and Sweden.
Yeah.
So all these guys, all these incredible jazz people are just pushed out
Yeah.
to the benefit of the Europeans. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what either they died out, or they were thrown out, or they went into academia.
Yeah.
The lucky ones got into academia, and then you come here for the festival. Still do in the summer.
Poland's still got a big jazz festival.
So I think there's something about pot and reflection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that would happen in the second. Like we would study these psychedelic posters that had all these images in it, right? You'd sit there for hours trying to figure out what's trying to be said, and self-reflection, which I talked about this earlier. One of my producers at Second City said that satire was a haven for the middle class because they actually had time to contemplate and to look at culture and go, what the hell's going on here, right? Whereas working class people, for the most part, didn't. And
you didn't have time. I don't think you had time to stop. When you live in a city like that and you're working class,
you're
always on the go. You've got so much culture around you, but
and you can't participate in it.
You don't realize it. It's like coming to living in Warsaw and speaking with Polish people here. They didn't have culture. They didn't have a mix of culture. Sorry.
That's right.
So they didn't grow up with Africans, Jamaicans, and all of this mix of music. You can tell with the music here. It doesn't have the influence from the African music that we had in places like in the big cities in America and big cities in England.
Although if you go see the jazz festival here, you see primo musicians.
Yeah, fantastic
Primo.
music. Yeah, I think even Iggy performed a couple of years back at this jazz festival. Yes, but it pulls big names.
Yeah. So,
people are
but they're I mean, I think they're allowed to make a living here, right? And aren't. There was something else I wanted to say about that thing with. So the other people that weren't, let's say, middle class or had time for that, they weren't trust fund kids or whatever. The other people that went into show business were people like me that actually thought about. I said this earlier. I thought I was going to die. I thought all the people in my grouping were going to die, not just from junk, but from murder, right? Or from Nixon, or from the military cracking down. So at a certain point, I just went, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to die, and that's fine with me too.
Yeah.
So my movement out into countercultural settings was part of that. That's who was out.
Yeah.
That's who was meeting. That's who was playing. And it didn't cost very much to see this stuff.
Yeah.
Either, because it was a niche market.
Yeah. I suppose back in the day as well, it was much easier to see bands perform.
Even rock and roll, like the Cream would come into town, and a kid like me could buy a ticket, right?
What would you say? So we had the stand-up comedy, and you said it was quite successful.
Well, I did improv comedy mostly. I did stand-up as well.
Yeah.
And
so when did you realize that with the improv that this could be a career? When did it start?
Never.
Never, yeah.
But there was one theater called the Second City in Chicago that was a professional theater that created satire out of improvised sets.
And you're a big part of this.
Now I am.
Yes.
I wasn't then.
Yeah.
So I went and saw my brother, again, took me to a set. So they do a regular sketch show, but it was really good stuff. And at the end of it, they'd have an improv set that was free. So you could go to the improv set for free. And my cousin was a writer for an underground newspaper, and my brother hung out with him, and they took me to this thing, and Bill Murray was on stage. Bill Murray wasn't a star. He was just a guy on stage. and he's doing a scene where he's a landlord, and he's in my neighborhood talking about the kids drinking in the churchyard. And I'm sitting there going, that's me. He's talking about me. I drink in that churchyard, right? And that's that's part of what this is me too,
Yeah.
right? And just 4 weeks after starting to improvise in class, somebody invited me out to a coffee shop at a college to perform. And we did, and we were terrible. But people were laughing at my dysfunctional stuff.
Yeah.
I think other improvisers called me the loon
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
Because I was just out there wild, putting these things out that nobody else was talking about. But for me, the audience was laughing. And I felt connected, and I felt accepted. And I think I just went, oh, this is my tribe.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and what would your fondest, well, maybe if we can take it back, and maybe the first ever paid gig that you had, like a movie that you was in?
well, movie
Yeah.
was, well, I did a couple movies before, but the first big Hollywood movie was called Nothing in Common. And it was with Jackie Gleason and Tom Hanks.
Okay.
And what happened is Gary Marshall came to the back theater that I created at Second City. So I almost got fired many times putting up this original theater in the back. But we did so well, reviews were so good, they couldn't fire me. Even though the producer would go, fire Jeff and Jane. Jane became my wife and partner. But the next time around, we get another great review and another great review. And the other producer pointed out to him how much liquor they were selling, because we were sold out, and it was like, okay. So Gary Marshall, who's was a director in the States. He did Pretty Woman and all of that other stuff. He came in, and I was directing and in the show at the same time, which was also not something that people did. And the reason I was able to do that, I'd put other people's stuff up first, and then go, what do we need? And then that's why I'd fill in. So he came in one day, and again, I don't get flustered by authority at all.
Yeah.
So he walked up to me and he said, I'm going to put your cast in a movie. And I said, yeah, whatever. Right? And then maybe 2 months later, he came back into town and put us all in the movie. And we just mostly played Tom Hanks's ad agency support group, and it would improvise little vignettes around that.
Yeah.
And so that was the first movie, and they flew us out to Hollywood to do it.
So at that time, you were still living in Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh.
I would have stayed there forever.
Yeah.
But then I got hired to open up a Second City in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I thought it was temporary. I thought I'd put up the show and come back.
Yeah.
And they didn't fly me back, first of all. And second of all, Gary and other directors started hiring us.
So that part of your life, what year was that when you moved to LA?
1989. And I had 2 kids by then.
Okay. What was LA like then? Rough?
It was...
Had its problems?
It was weird. It was weird. Because, you know what, it's a company town. So we had people hanging out at the theater and interfering with the theater that were agencies, television networks, and we're trying to interfere with the show. And again, I'm a guy that doesn't deal with authority on a basis of whatever you say, sir. I just put up what I wanted to. And I got fired from Second City at that time. We're on the front page of the LA Times, and that's okay. I'm happy to do my thing. But the control part of the media center, I just didn't mesh with it.
Yeah.
So
at that time, would you say that, because we spoke earlier about you as an actor that didn't have that limelight all the time, which was a blessing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And
You're creating your own stuff for regular people.
Yeah. So at that time, did you get a little bit more of this being in the papers when once you moved to LA, or?
Well, no, it started in Chicago. I
Yeah.
mean, the first show my dad came to see, which was years after I'd started, was because he's showing the newspaper article to his police friends,
Yeah,
and
so
he
showing
finally came. And I think at that point, I became something he could accept
Yeah.
for a while. And so, yeah, I'd already had experience. The reason that we were able to open the Second City ETC, we were going to get fired. We were told not to open,
Yeah.
and we got a great review.
Ah.
And so we continued to get great reviews. So
What age was you at then? What age would you say you was at then?
28, 29, yeah. So before that, I did comedy clubs for years, and we were popular there too.
Yeah.
We got written up in papers all the time as this really inventive crew, and we were playing at comedy clubs, doing improvisation and being funnier than the stand-ups.
Yeah.
Because we knew how to play a house, right?
Yeah.
And we were anarchists. We were just always destroying whatever we created.
Did you have many people got jealous? Did any comedians ever have a bit of a jealous spell when you guys were coming in, or?
Yeah, but for the club owners, it was like, no, these guys bring it.
Yeah.
So Emo was one of the comedians.
Okay.
Yeah, who's I guess is big in Britain.
Yeah.
So but he was a new guy, and we took care of him.
Yeah.
Right? And he's a tremendous joke writer.
So being an actor, as some people may not understand, there isn't always work.
No.
Is there any memories you have where you were out of work?
Absolutely.
Money was low.
Yeah.
You had to pick up any kind of job that
I
was
lived in a
available.
car for a little while.
Okay.
And I was teaching gym to young kids that were thrown out of public schools.
Okay.
There are disciplinary problems.
I'm familiar with these programs. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar. We have one just across the street here.
Yeah.
This is the
So
same.
they brought me in as a gym teacher, and I'd had maybe a year of physical education
Yeah.
in college, and I came in, and these kids were just beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
They're playing. The one thing that someone taught them was that battle ball.
Yeah.
And so the autistic kids were being slammed by the aggressive kids, and that was their gym experience.
Yeah.
And so I went, I got to change this. And so what I did was I set up bowling pins at either end of the gym. I was already improvising at that time, but I was still living in a car. I didn't have enough money to have rent. So I set up bowling pins on both sides of the gym, and instead of hitting the other kid, they got points for hitting the bowling pin. And then, this might be cruel, but I put the autistic kids in front of the bowling pins and told them their only job, was to stop the ball from hitting the pin. And so they did that, and then I pushed them out and said, now your job is to be in front of whoever it is. So teaching them defense. And then I said to the other kids, now, if you shoot for the basket, you get more points. And I started taking the bowling pins away, and then pretty soon they were playing basketball. And that was the great thing for me. And now the people that ran the school were going, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Would you say that the way you grew up impacted your way that you saw actors and the way that you could improvise?
Absolutely. I had to entertain. I had to be a rodeo clown for my dad. So it wasn't so much he was after me, although he would pull guns out on me and stuff like that. I had to distract him. And it wasn't going to come out of logic or reason. It had to come out of nonsense.
Yeah.
And the same thing out in the street. When I was out at the street at night, if a gang came up and surrounded me, I had to entertain them to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and basically it was realistic entertainment. It was like, you're gonna beat me up?
Yeah. there's a gun to your head, and think of the best things you can come up with on the spot.
Yeah, and so that was part of it. And the same thing was true in school, where I had to improvise Polish, or that I understood Polish.
Yeah.
And in the Navy, to get through that, I had to survive, I had to be my creative self, but it also was something that was frowned upon, you know. I did disruptive things. They were busting. That's a really involved story. I don't know if we have time to do it, but I was on the Radio Shack, right, in the radio department. It was you had to have a clearance to be there, and one of my jobs was, if we missed the broadcast messages that came across the teletype, you had to go to, in a storm or something, you had to go to another ship and get their stuff. So I went to another, and the best places to smoke pot were the Radio Shack. They were closed off, they're secure spaces. You had to have a clearance to come in. So when people had hash, they would show up there. So I went to this other ship, drove over there, and I went up to their shack and, you know, did the dink, dink, dink button and came in. And they were smoking. And there's a guy from my ship there. But you know, I was just doing my job. I'm a good guy, good kid, good sailor, whatever. I got the things and I left and went back to the ship. Well, the next day we were pulling out to sea and everybody's like in a panic. And I'm sitting eating and one of the petty officers sits down next to me. And I see this guy walk by. And I go, oh, that guy was on the USS Meridian last night or something. And he just gets up, white-faced, and runs out. And then he comes back and says, the captain wants to see you. So I go up to the bridge, and the captain's up there with other officers. And he goes, Ski. If you're Polish, they called you Ski. He had no other identity, right? And so we're looking down at the bridge, and he goes, Ski, I understand you saw our stowaway. So he's assuming this guy I saw was a stowaway from the other ship. And I said, I don't know if he's a stowaway. I just saw him on the other ship. And they bring me up to the window, and they have me look down at these three guys. And they're walking up the deck. And he said, you see those guys? He goes, yeah, they're part of your crew, aren't they? I don't know what you're talking about. But they're Airedales. Airedales worked with the pilots. They were separate from the rest of the thing. And what happened was the officer that was up on the deck, he was a deck officer, somebody put on monkey masks, and they ran and they pushed them down the holds. So now they're conflating that the stowaway and the monkey mask guy and me, because I saw this guy, are all part of this thing.
Yeah.
But he believes it's a stowaway, so he calls all the ships in the fleet in that area in the Mediterranean and says, we have a stowaway on our ship. Well, they all report everybody's accounted for. So now he thinks I'm part of this conspiracy. So I'm not, but they call me down to the executive officer who wants me to testify against these guys. And I say, I can't testify with them. I don't know them. I don't know about the monkey mask or any of this. And he decides I'm lying. So they bust me. And they bust me out of the radio department, put me in the deck department, and everybody down there hates me because I came from this elevated position down here. So I don't have a bunk because no one will give up a bunk for me. I'm sleeping on the floor. People are coming in from leave throwing shit at me. All kinds of other stuff is happening. And the executive officer busts me for, they send me to clean a berthing compartment, and they find a candy wrapper there. And oh no, it was a soda can. And they bust me for having a soda can in the berthing compartment. I don't know. I didn't look up the rules and see what that was. I didn't. It's just. So they brought me to captain's match, which is not the first time. Many times they brought me there. Non-judicial punishment. They can fine you. They can. So I got on the radio and I called a legal operation on the military base. And they showed up for my captain's list on a helicopter. They came out, lawyers came out in the helicopter and came into this thing where they're going to read a charge that I had a Coke can in the compartment, which these lawyers would have gone, what the fuck, right? So the lawyers showed up and then they just dropped everything, but they weren't done. So I went home to do stand-up, oddly enough. I flew back to Chicago, did stand-up. I would do this every other week. If I'd sign up for this thing, and then if I got up, and I'd try to fly back and get back in time. Mostly I got back in time. So this one time I get back, and maybe a half hour late, and the guy, the head of the deck department, is up on the ladder, at the top of the ladder. And I get up there, and he goes, you have to stand inspection right now. And he said, the whole ship does. And so I go down to the deck berthing department, and I go to my locker, and it's broken open, and nothing's in it. And I said, well, can you just let me clean the compartment? I don't have anything here. That's what you usually do when people aren't ready. And he said, no, you have to stand inspection. I go, but you see, he goes, no. And he says, well, I'm going to put you in the brig for 3 days on bread and water. And I said, I think that may deserve another call. And he says, okay, what if I give you an honorable discharge after your stint in the brig? And I go, okay. And so I did that. And so they put me in a transfer department on base. And I'm there, and oh no, I'm in the brig, right? So the third day, so I'm in the brig, and there's one guy next to me, and he's singing all the time like he's a radio station. He's W, blah, 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 and he sings a song. And so the third day or second day, I went ring, ring, ring in the cell next to him, and he finally answers, and he says the call letters of the station. I say, hey, do you know anything by war? And he starts singing Cisco Kid, right? So that's how I'm occupying my time. Yeah. And then the next morning I get up and they're taking me out of the brig. I had 3 days bread and water, which is basically white bread and water. So you only eat it the first day. And I come out and I look over at the other cell, and that guy's, and the Marine guard just pushes me out, slams me out, and starts taking care of that. And I just walk out because I'm getting out anyway. And I get out, and there's these two black guys from the deck department waiting to pick me up. And so they pick me up, I get in the car, and they stop, they want to get something to eat, so they stop at a Burger King, and they get a bunch of burgers, and they throw them in the back seat. And I'm thinking, wow, these guys are great. They got this food for me, and I ate everything, right? And then they turn around and they go, hey, Ski, throw us up our burgers. I go, So they're really pissed at me, but they're still going to drive me back, but they got other stuff on their agenda. So we go to some restaurant where they eat, and then we go to a bar. Oh no, we went to a party, and I'm just waiting for them to go back to the base. And so I'm sitting up on the roof. It was one of these parties where people were out on the roof. So up on the roof, and I see them leaving, right, getting in the car. So I go, wait, and jump off the car. The roof, and go down the car, and they take me to this bar, and it's all black bar, and I'm there just waiting for everybody to drive me back whenever they're ready, and this girl starts flirting with me, and I'm cautious. I'm friendly, but I'm cautious. Oh, I had a Gideon's Bible with me that I took from the cell, so I'm cautious and. But she pulls me up to dance, and then this guy runs from across the bar and slams me across the room. And all these guys jump on him, and pretty soon everybody in this bar is fighting all around me. And I go outside, and I'm sitting there while people are fighting in the street, and another girl comes up to me and says, and I have the Bible, and she goes, are you Christian? I go, well, right now I am. And so I do that, and then all of a sudden, the fight stops, and the car pulls up and says, "Ski, get in the car." So I get in the car, and the girls are in the car, and they're driving these girls home to this Norfolk suburb. And I get out of the car because I have to pee. These guys are walking into the door to make out or whatever it is. And suddenly another car comes by and starts shooting out the window. So I just dive in the bushes. And then they come out to the car and they're just going, "Ski, ski, ski." They think I'm shot or something. And then we get in the car and we're driving back. Whole car full of guys. And it's like 2 in the morning or something like that. And the car runs out of gas. And so we get out on the highway. It's dark. These guys are going, "Well, we got to hitchhike." And then they look at each other and they look at me and says, "You got to hitchhike." And they go into the cul-de-sac. And so, because I'm the white guy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hitchhiking and a cab comes up and pulls up. And I said, I just opened the door and they jumped in the cab. We get back to the base. We're right at the front of gate, and they all get out of the car and run away. I'm sitting in the front seat with the driver, and I don't have any money. I just got out of the brig. So he drives down the side road where he sees them walking up ahead, and he stops the car, and they stop, and he goes, "You, go out and get the money." Well, I got out, and as soon as I cleared the car, they took off. So I'm not a snitch, right? So I go the other way, and this cab driver starts chasing me, and all these, he blows a whistle, and they all start jumping out to tackle me. I'm a real good runner. So I'm just dodging everybody, and I sneak around the back end of this bar, a strip bar, and there's a Marine in the alley, not in uniform, but I can tell he's a jarhead. And I'm walking by and I'm going, "Oh, fuck, Marine." And he's going, "What's going on?" And I go, "There's a big fight out there." And he ran out, and I ran through this lot that was all abandoned cars. And I found a car, and I just laid inside of it. Now there's all these cabs driving up and down the road, and there's shining lights out there. And I hear some crunching, and then I look out, and they point the flashlight at me, and it's the Marine and the cab driver. And the Marine's in a karate stance. And I go, "I'm not going to fight you." And he takes me back to the thing. One of the other guys got busted, too. And I went back to, I was going to be busted, but I went back to the transient place I was staying, and I got out the next day. That was my last day in the Navy.
Wow, what an ending.
Yeah, it was a great ending. And then when I got back, my brother took me to the comedy thing.
So earlier we spoke about this not being a feeling like a job for you.
Right.
And now I understand why, because most of the time you was just doing what you could do to survive.
That's right.
And coming up with a way of paying the bills,
Yeah.
or a way to get yourself out of a situation.
That's right. Yeah.
So to get to the end of where we are now, which I would love to go on for hours and hours, you're such an interesting guy, we could go on forever. I wanted to ask you a question about acting as you see now, because we have AI now coming into play. We spoke about this before, but you're still touring Europe and the world, still teaching improv. Yeah. What still drives you now to do that?
For me, I feel I have a duty.
Yeah.
Someone asked me in an interview how I perceive myself, and it's real bizarre. And probably I see myself as a liberator, right? And off my background, that would make perfect sense. So my thing is to free people up from gatekeepers. And that includes theaters, improv communities, movies, doesn't matter. So if somebody like me can go in there or happen, it means that if you take it upon yourself to just show up wherever, that you don't need, there's no one that can tell you go away. No one can tell you go away. And engagement is the main part of it for me. It's about, I call it my practice. My practice is to move with the other player, so that I'm already in agreement with them, to read their demeanor, which gives them license to tell story, and then deconstruct what they say, because deconstruction is the poetry, it's music, it's the moment, the deconstructed moment is what it's about. So in jazz, for instance, it's when somebody deviates that everybody dives into that moment. And they deconstruct it, take all these solos and boom, until it comes back to that moment, right? And the same is true in producing content for improvisation, whether it's in jazz or whether it's in improvisation, it's what emerges. It's not any storytelling ability you have. It's what actually emerges in that moment, and you manifesting everything that comes out from the other player and exploring that. And to me, that's a liberating thing for any creative, is to understand that the pattern recognition. In creativity theory, they call that first, every artist has to start with a tolerance of ambiguity. They have to tolerate that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Right? Like the first situation when you go and shoot, you have to go, I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll figure this out. Right?
As we go,
Okay? And you figure it out by what emerges in the moments of connection. And that's what it becomes about. Right?
I think that's what life is. Life is improv. It's making shit up as you go half the time.
But it's not about making, it's like seeing the elements of what's there and deconstructing it. It's like if you're a guitarist and you practice every day, you play the same chords all the time, right? But one day this chord resonates with this chord, and suddenly you start doing what's called divergent thinking, which you find as many patterns as possible between those two things that resonate with you. And it's only in the third part that you go, it calls convergent thinking, where you go, this is a love song. And it's really how all art emerges. Whether it's painting, is you don't know what you're doing, you do something, you see some patterns, then you start diverging what you're doing with the patterns, and then you go, oh, this painting means this.
So I think the understanding that I have now is that probably from all of the time that you was doing things as a child, going to school, not really understanding certain ways, on kind of being an outsider, you had to find your formula.
That's right. You have to figure out, that means something. What does it mean?
Because let's face it, a lot of industries out there, they're very picky. It doesn't matter what industry it is, if it's film industry, if it's the industry that I'm in, cutting hair, or it's photography or music, everyone portrays that there is a certain way that you have to do something. But with the likes of you, it's nice to see people go against the grain and say that anyone is welcome to this. Anyone can try their luck at acting. It doesn't have to be a certain formula.
Or any art.
Yeah.
People prevent themselves from becoming because they're afraid of the gatekeeper. Or they have to go through all this particular training to even get the opportunity to get it, and they need someone to hire them for it. And then you got Banksy. He just goes out and paints a wall, right? That's the practice. It's not somebody giving him money to go do a wall. Now they do, right? Yeah. But at the beginning, it's just him.
And he was probably, like everybody out there, trying to find what works and what doesn't.
Or he just was compelled to do that.
Yeah.
And needed to say something, and that was his outlet, right? So, and people started paying attention because it said something to them.
Yeah.
Because he is probably deconstructing something. He does. Yeah. I mean, look at his paintings are messages.
Yeah, absolutely. They're ironic. A lot of them are ironic, right?
Yeah. Irony is key to humor and expansion of consciousness. Irony is how your behavior differs from your ideals. It's self-indicting, right? It's not, it becomes propaganda if Brent Banksy just does Trump. But if there's no message in there, if there's no irony, if there's no extension of how does this being exist with us, Trump is a natural phenomenon off of American pop culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's part of our feed from pop culture. It's of course who are we going to? It's entertainment, right?
Yeah.
It's critical entertainment, and it's from a person that doesn't belong and never has belonged.
Yeah.
And so all these people in the States who feel like they've been abandoned, and he just resonates with them about, yeah, you're right, it's that guy's fault.
Yeah.
It's that color's fault. It's that boom. It's that media's fault.
Yeah.
It's that boom.
Yeah.
And because the media itself is a corporation, they back down. They back down. And they've done it all along, and now even more broadly and more horrifically.
Yeah. And last question I have for you: do you feel like with acting, especially the career that you've had, it's also a way of coping with what the world throws at you?
Absolutely. Right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. Because in a sense, you are conjuring your own material. Right? So if I'm doing stand-up, I am breaking open some abstract or some irony that I can participate in. Right? I don't try to mold myself unless it's just off the communication with the other person. Right?
Yeah.
So if someone sees me as something, there's no reason why I shouldn't be that. Right?
Yeah.
So there's no reason I can't manifest it in the moment. There's nothing much more to most types of acting.
Yeah.
So if you're carrying a film, if you're somebody that's There Will Be Blood,
Yeah.
or I say Daryl Be Blood
Yeah.
as a name, a character name, then yes, that person is hired to convey specific messages, and they really, Daniel Day-Lewis and people like that are incredibly talented.
Absolutely. To get into character, right?
I got to do a scene with Al Pacino, I got to do a scene with Meryl Streep, I got to do a scene with Tom Hanks, I got to go do a scene with this person. And I know that they're the focus of the scene. And I know that my thing is just to build this little piece of the world that fits with what they need to accomplish in the scene.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to go, look at me.
Yeah.
Like, it's about being available to whatever is emerging as a story.
Yeah. And for actors like you, it plays a huge part to build a whole story line, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I was saying that when we first met, I could recognize your face, and it was only when I went back and watched movies, I was like, wait a minute, you know, this is Jeff in this, Jeff's in that, and there's many places. And
it's a dichotomy too, because part of my thing in my house was to remain invisible.
Yeah.
Right? And probably too, in these things where authority figures didn't really recognize what I was about, because there's a thing where I feel like I can be invisible.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not when I want to be. Like me getting a drink at a bar is really something to watch.
Yeah.
It's like I really am invisible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's both a survival mechanism and it's something that allows me to participate in things like the Democratic Convention or these other events where I can be in the midst of chaos and not be the focal point. Right.
And it sounds like a great formula for me anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Hey,
It's been an
thank
absolute pleasure.
Hey.
I think next time we'll have to do a part 2.